So thank you for coming, and we'll get to our star of the show in just a second, but also a plug for other Center for Teaching workshops coming up. There's one on Monday, I believe. There's a whole slew of things that you can do to improve your teaching and learn about other people are doing. There's one coming up on using rubrics for an assessment, and don't be intimidated by the word rubric, by the way. Rubric is a very empowering way to actually
that's the cube, correct?
Yes, that's right. Rubric's cube. I figured since I had to introduce the president today, I would try to dress as professorial as I possibly could.
To
answer your question, yes, I do have arm elbow patches. So that's key ingredient to that is what I'm told.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're very excited to have I can't say new president anymore. Rookie president. He's well into his rookie year. He's going to present on his cultural trip through Israel, and I seriously doubt that I need to say anything more than that to introduce you to Dr. Wilfredo Nieves.
Thank you, Kevin. Just a quick aside, the first time I met Kevin, he wasn't dressed in this manner. He was very casual in shorts, and I said, well, he must be one of our students. But I'm glad that we all know that we're not schizophrenic, that we just wear the appropriate clothes at the right times. And I know he does a great job in the classroom. Thank you, Kevin. I had a tremendous opportunity this past May to be invited to participate in a study tour. Sometimes you don't know what you're going to get yourself into, and I've always been the kind of person that I won't say I'm a risk taker, but I like to think that I'm a little bit of an adventurer, and that I certainly want to always be a lifelong learner. So when I was asked by a friend who I serve on a board with, actually a friend, I'm on the board of the community renewal team up here, and one of the other board members asked me, could he nominate me for something? He didn't tell me too much. I said, can you nominate me? Sure, you can nominate me. And does that mean I'm going to give him more money? He said, no, you're not going to get any more money. But he says, the possibility may be that you can go on an exciting trip. So what he did, he submitted my name to the New York Israeli consulate. And I've always been concerned about what appears on the internet with my name, because there's several Wilfredo Nieves. There's not just one Wilfredo Nieves. But they did a Google, and because of what they found out, in spite of some of the other Wilfredo Nieves, and in spite of this Wilfredo Nieves, they invited me in to see if I would be interested in doing this, to go into Israel. And that. So, in today's world where everything about you is no longer private, it sometimes has an advantage, because people do see some of the things that you're involved in and that you want to be part of. So because of that, certainly, as I tell students, the importance of networking, the importance of being sure that whatever's out there, at least in some way or form, is something you want to be said about you. And that's all. So it was a great opportunity, and the way this occurred, the trip actually started with the Israeli consulate and the Jewish Federation of Los Angeles. They wanted to take a team of 20 people, and I'll show you a picture of my colleagues and friends, to go to Israel, to learn about Israel culture, and to see it from the ground, not to see it from the newspapers, not to see it from the media. They wanted to give us their perspective, and quite interesting. And I would say, my perspective has changed. That the recent incident with the flotilla, I think of it much more differently now than if that had occurred before my visit, and getting a better sense of the conflict, the politics, what Israel is about, what the Jewish people are about. I love children. I think children are more than our future. They're our day-to-day grounding, and help us see things in ways that, as adults, we also often lose sight of. And that, so this was great to visit a kindergarten class on that.
Is it helpful if you want me to do the slides and
oh, good.
move around that way? You don't fine behind.
what I'd like this to be, I don't want to just talk to you. At any point, I really would like you to stop me, ask questions, comment. How many of you have been to Israel? Okay, yes. You know, one of the things, and my study or my learnings started before I got to Israel. I sat next to a young man from Florida who had just graduated from college, and as part of the Birthright program, he was going to Israel. And to see or get to know about that young people having the opportunity to go and experience, because again, Americans living in America, wonderful country as it is, experience everything differently. That basically is when Kevin asked me, what do I want to talk about? That's my explanation. I think sharing my experiences, it just was something that left a life impression on me. And that. Originally, the trip was supposed to be community leaders of Hispanic background. There were 22 participants on the team, plus our guides, our teachers. And of the 22, 4 of us were from the East Coast. The other 16 were from Los Angeles area, basically. And it turned out to be a community leaders group because it wasn't all Latinos. We had 2 African Americans, we had 2 Koreans, we had a Jordanian. It just turned out to be much more. And I think that certainly added to the experience, again, the sharing of perspectives that is so critical. The discussions that occurred at night over a bottle of wine, a cup of coffee or tea. The true learnings, when you're able to talk to people who you haven't learned, but you become very close to in a very short time. One of the things I've always found interesting and part of my training in terms of a psychologist, counseling psychologist, were marathons. And something happens in a marathon that your guard goes down and you just accept things more readily than when you're not in constant go mode. Those are my colleagues and friends. People in the media, people, there was a person who had a TV show in Univision over from Los Angeles, another person. The 2 Koreans were journalists, one out of Washington, D.C. Our official photographer was an African-American 18-year-old who was sponsored by the Federation, but his mentor.
Is that okay, or is that too dark?
No, that's good.
His mentor was the official photographer of the Los Angeles Lakers. So he really wanted to show off his skills and to impress his mentor when he got back. So he took about 1,000 pictures. You're not going to get 1,000 pictures. You're not going to get those. Remember those old times when we used to get the slideshows with the, and then, we're not going to get that, but you'll get some. And at some other point, hopefully, if you are of interest, I'd be glad to share more with you. But it was a phenomenal group. One of the instructors, a professor from the University of Southern California in their media department. Another person was the who worked for Mayor Bloomberg in New York in his media. He's the director of media services for Latinos in New York City. There was another gentleman from out of New Haven. Actually, we had known each other before, and it was good to have someone you knew and that you call up and you still share the stories about and that. Welcome to Jerusalem. I've had the opportunity to travel to some places, not as much as I like to. When I retire, and hopefully still have the energy, I think that's what I'd be doing a lot more of. But this certainly, again, gave me a different perspective of the world. I've been to some places. My son, who's a world traveler, he's very seldom jealous of me, but he's jealous of this trip and the kinds of things that I experienced. The first day in Israel, you drive from Ben Gurion Airport, International Airport, and you're seeing the change in landscape and a certain desert, and going into the city, and you see the building that's going on, and the university's on the outskirts, and then you go by the old city of Jerusalem, and you see the wall, and you start thinking about what does all this mean. I'm Catholic, And so one of the things that really resonated for me was to really see some of the things that every Sunday I get the homilies version and don't know what it really means, or to see where Christ walked. So for me, in that sense, it was a religious moment, also a spiritual moment, and I consider both of those two things different. So we walked through the old city. We went to the Western Wall, and this was Friday night. I wanted pictures, but you can't take pictures there. That's one of the things in terms of respecting, and so being very clear about that. One of the most powerful moments in my life was to be at the wall praying, seeing the different individuals who are Jewish, whether it's ultra-Orthodox, whether it's the young men and women who are in the military right after high school, whether it's visitors from all around the world, and then in the background, hearing the Muslims praying in their place of worship, the Dome on the Rock. And together, for me, it was a sense of harmony, people coming together to pray for peace on that. After that, we had dinner at Shabbat dinner at the Bet Shamel, and we shared what our expectations were, and what we felt this first day, and what it meant for us. That praying, you know, made me think about when you see people who don't want to take the time to communicate, to talk. And unfortunately, those are the minority. But how everybody else suffers and is impacted by that. Because again, seeing the people there and hearing, and certainly seeing in the city of Jerusalem, which is a city has four quarters, the Jewish quarter, the Catholic, the Christian quarter, the Armenian quarter, and the Muslim quarter. Again, for such a small area, and to have the world prominence that it has. I think about the different cities that I've visited, and you know, we think about cities like New York and Los Angeles, but that's Old Jerusalem, what's in there, what it means to the world, and for us, somehow through true negotiations and discussions coming together to understand that we need for that to be a truly international city, a place for the world. We went to the Gethsemane in the garden, and for me, thinking about where Christ went to think and to see some of these olive trees that are hundreds and hundreds of years old and how beautiful they are. And then to go into the church, certainly, and getting a sense of that spirituality, just being close to what that means. Very, very powerful and very important. It was a really interesting day because we started there. We did a lot of walking, we also had the bus though, but we did the walking for the most part. You know, sometimes pictures can't do justice, but to sit up here and for me to see the gate where Christ walked through on Palm Sunday, and to try and picture that in my mind. After reading about it, or after hearing the priests tell me their stories, or going back to when I was an adolescent in catechism classes and things like that, and not wanting to hear that or see that, didn't want to be bothered with that. But at this moment, how close I felt to my inner core. You cross the valley there, you see the tombstones, the cemetery, the very special cemetery for the Jewish people in terms of when the time comes of the people who are there going to be lifted up and that. But to go into the old city and see some of the things in there, and the markets, seeing markets in different places around the world. Some of my friends, again, of course you go to different places, you want to spend your money and bring back things. Lots of shoppers, good shoppers, and they were bargaining. I don't like to bargain, but they were bargaining and picking up things left and right, going through. And we were on our way to the Church of the Sepulchre there.
Dr. Nieves, were
Yes.
you allowed to go on your own, or this was pretty much structured?
It was structured during the day. In the evenings, we had a little bit of time after because they had a very tight program. We were on ground 5 days, 3 days in Jerusalem, 2 days in Tel Aviv. And we started the morning out with having a lecture. And then in the evenings at dinner, we would have a lecture. And then we'd have somebody come. And one of the things that was really balanced was that we had Palestinian professors, journalists come and speak with us, and we had Jewish professors. So you heard from both perspectives in that. And you heard common ground, but unfortunately you heard the extremes. And I think, again, getting a sense of those things were important. Those of us who were more daring, because I know that somebody had asked me earlier about security. I felt safer than here, actually. We had a security guard, which I didn't know until the third day, that he was with us. He was, I just thought he was another member of the group, just on this trip with us. And so never at any point felt troubled or insecure and that. And walking with people all around you constantly, especially when you're in the old city. And in the different markets, but it was just, and one of my friends, actually Carlos, who's out of New York, he just doesn't sleep at night, and he would get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and go walking around by himself totally, and that's and again, not having any sense of, sometimes naivety is very good, and certainly the Dome on the Rock, getting a sense of the different religions, the church on the bottom is the Church of the Sepulchre, and this is a Russian Orthodox church up here. This little passageway is a very small part where they tried to give you a sense of what it was like when the Romans were in that. And they're redeveloping that, but there's actually some real remnants from that time, and there's a picture on the wall. It's, when you think about so much in such little space, because we think about cities and that, and think of a city of Hartford. Hartford's considered a small city, but it has over 100,000 people and stuff. But here you talk about a whole lot more than that in these small areas. And people who are very different, not talking to each other. I mean, when you would see people, Muslims, you would see the ultra-Orthodox, and they would look at each other and not look at each other, not see each other. Those are the things that keep coming back into my mind. How do we create opportunities for people? And that's one of the things I learned about the Jewish Federation throughout the United States, how they sponsor different kinds of programs, and I'll share some of the things that they're doing there. In the Church of the Holy Sepulchre is where the crucifixion occurred, the spot where Christ was crucified. And there's also the tomb in there. And so to think about these places, and again, I, for some reason in my mind, thought these things were really far away from each other. But you get a sense of the proximity of the times and how things were close to each other. Where the light is coming through, that is where the spot where the tomb is for Christ. Although the mural, I guess it is the tile mural, the mosaic there on the wall, is a picture of Christ being bathed before he's put in the sheets to be in the tomb. Oh, that's not really, that hasn't been proven to be that spot. That's one of the things I remember real clearly. I said, wow, that looks pretty, but that isn't there, but they demonstrate that. Again, so many people coming here from all over the world and to talk and ask questions. That evening, after we went to the Holy Sepulchre, our lecturer was David Mendelsohn, and he's a journalist in Israel, but he talked about the challenges and triumphs of the Israeli society of 2010. And he talked about, in some really interesting ways, how they see their future, how they would like to see the future, and the kinds of things that they see getting in the way. And he talked about why it's so important for there to be a solution. It's so important, so critical, and not just for Israel, but for the world. This was interesting to me because I believe that there have not been terrorist bombings or anything in Jerusalem in about 5 years, and that's when they constructed that wall there. If you see the wall separating that part, they constructed that to cut back and to try and deter. And that this again is as we're leaving this out of the gates. They had the 4 gates to come into Old Jerusalem. We're going out that way. When you think about the geopolitics, the land issues, the geography, there's been a lot of discussion about the possibility of a 2-state solution. Certainly what stands in the way of that is what are the 2 states? Who gets what? What can you do with what one gets and the other one doesn't have? And when later on they talked a great deal about the settlements. And the situation about when they had, and since that time, certainly the time for not having any more settlements has gone by, and I know there's a lot of discussions now and some concerns about what's going to happen.
Why do you think the wall is built to keep who out? Is it a mechanism of keeping certain groups of people
yes.
out?
No, it limited the entry of Arabs, and that people who may or may not be terrorists or that, but again, it's more symbolic than anything, and it certainly made me think about some of the issues that we have with fences and borders here, with Latinos and other people, and that. But certainly that was a measure that they took, and later on when we went to Bethlehem, going across on the other side. And our guides and our instructors couldn't come with us because they were Jewish. They couldn't go. And there was probably one of the few times, because there were people, military with guns, and so that was one of the times where it was visible. I mean, really in your face kind of the situation. Yet, while there, no problem whatsoever, and that. But again, we create these walls, these fences. Was it Robert Frost's poem?
Good fences make good neighbors.
Something there is that doesn't level.
Yeah.
You know, in the old city, I was just struck by again the 2 religious places of worship. They look like they're almost on top of each other, and you start thinking about coexistence and how you can have a visual that gives you a sense of some coexistence. And again, wondering when do we learn? When do we get over these things that get in the way? And how historically we have taken on beliefs, because there's the extremists on each group, on each side, believe that they're the chosen ones, that they're the ones who have right to this. And that. Yet that's not the majority of people on there. It is such a complicated, you know, and again, sometimes wanting things to happen, think about, why just can't they sit down and talk about this and get this over with? Why? And that is, again, when people are so caught up in their personal beliefs and the extremes and what they feel they have rights to, no matter who else is involved.
Do you think those feelings are dormant? Do you think that I mean, if they
Could you just speak up?
oh, I'm sorry, Nancy. Are those feelings dormant? Do you think they're dormant, or did you see that they exist for real?
No. Well,
When you say that it was only the minority of the extremes,
right.
But the minorities can control so much. I mean, in any given environment, minorities usually don't have political power or economic,
yes.
So how does it? And I know what you're saying, but how does it translate to the conflict still occurring?
Well, you know, I see in silly ways things that happen here on campus.
Yeah.
You have 1 or 2 individuals who just and they go out and promote and they're the ones who candidly 10% 90% of my time goes to 10% of and they don't have to deal with issues related to what we're here for. And that is because somebody believes so strongly that this is what they should, and then because so often because we hear part of the story, we don't hear the whole story. We know this person, we don't know that person, and then we wind up taking sides. I mean, it's just so that, and when I go back to children, because when I see children, they don't care who's in the sandbox. They don't share with anybody sometimes, and they share with everybody all the time. And it isn't because that person is this or that when they do something, because it is about learning and socializing and taking things differently. And that thousands and thousands of years where beliefs have been promulgated, people have done certain kinds of things. It's unfortunate, but it's the reality. And certainly I think we in education are in such an important place because we're there at the cutting edge where we can really help shape beliefs, feelings, helping people to be just a little bit more objective. Just a little bit. That's all it would take. It doesn't take you have to change their mind. Just to sit and listen and disagree. And that. But I think that, why I think that we're fortunate. I know that I'm fortunate to be an educator, and I take great pride in it. But again, and seeing what some of the small programs and hoping that they have lasting impact over time. I mean, some of the things that they do where they bring some of the Jewish children and Palestinian children together to do things. Some of the stories they told us about, the kids were playing and then the adults got in the way and wouldn't let them, and the kinds of things. Some things, we get in the way of natural phenomena. So what is needed for peace to be a reality? We got to get out of the way. We got to stop tripping over ourselves. And that we have to help. Interesting, the one group I didn't hear from, or I would want to hear more from the ultra Orthodox. We didn't have a speaker from the ultra Orthodox. I would have liked to have more interaction with one of them at least to hear more and to learn more. But it really is going to take people sitting down and the people, because I sense, even though they weren't arm in arm, or there were people talking and dealing with each other. And certainly in the marketplace is a great place, because I think that's when you really get down to hands-on things, and how people barter and they're there together, they're working together, they're coexisting. Do they love each other? No. Are they able to do things? Yes. Second most powerful part of my experience in this trip was visiting Yad Vashem, the complex where it's the National Memorial to the Holocaust. I have not been to any of the museums here in the country or the Holocaust memorials, but the first one there where you have the entry, where you have the glass, is dedicated to the million children, the children who were in that. Going through that touched me again, and just thinking how we, humanity, one, could be that way, two, let something like that happen. And unfortunately, some things are still going on in today's world. And it's hearing why. And then for me, that was why I feel many of the Jewish people, the people in Israel, when they say never again, and then the issue of seeing themselves threatened and the way they are being threatened, it's not that it makes it right, but understanding why there is such a strong position, and that when you hear someone else who say, we want to eliminate you. And yet, still, there are people there who want to discuss and work things out. I have on my agenda to go to the other memorials, certainly here and the one in Washington, and again, a sense of knowing and feeling more about people. within the museum. Interesting seeing in Israel, all men and women have to serve in the military after high school. It's something we should really consider, which and that cooling out time, learning, maturing. It really is interesting, and we did speak to some of them because some of them, women serve 2 years, men 3 years. But people can take additional years in doing community service kinds of things, whether it's in the school. And we had an opportunity to talk to a couple of them at some of the schools we visited. Again, young people were young people wherever. They would ask me questions about America and the kinds of things and that. Or what do they feel about this? How do they feel? What they, and that. I didn't see at least arms. Or I went to Spain one year, and coming out of the airport, you see people with these big machine guns. And that wasn't present. And even when I went to China, didn't have a sense of it as I did when you cross these lines, but felt very secure. And again, delightful individuals who are, they're young, they're kids. But yet they have to carry on such a big responsibility. Yeah, on that. No, that's good. That's good. Here, just again, a different market. We ate a lot. We ate a lot, and the food was good. And if you like Mediterranean food, that's a great place to be and stuff and that. We stopped at the stands and we had all the good stuff and that. And each of the speakers we had either for dinner or breakfast, and then we had lunch when I talk a little bit about the government. And having the opportunity to visit them. But again, the journalists, and they were so personal. They wanted us to hear from them on the ground, not what we read, not what's portrayed in the media. I felt that they were very spontaneous, very truthful, wanting to do more and have more happen. And again, certainly part of this trip is to get us to see and be influenced on their way. But they did a good job of providing some balance in terms of the persons we heard from and stuff and that.
Can I ask what's happening in this upper right picture?
Okay, we gave gifts to the speakers, and there were some kind of memento, whether it was something that was one of the Korean gentlemen gave something symbolic of his culture. I brought some T-shirts and pencils from, at the time, Middlesex and stuff and that. And so we gave them stuff and that. That's what that is, exchanging gifts and this sort of stuff. Well, there were 20 of us, and each one, you know. I mean, I went down and bought some. You're right; they're a lot less expensive. No discounts. Again, similar to the picture I showed at the beginning earlier with the wall, when we were going to Bethlehem, you have to cross into the Palestinian side. And that's the Church of the Nativity outside in Bethlehem. One of the things that really struck you was that the infrastructure, the buildings, was not as modern, or as they didn't look as well kept as in Jerusalem and the part. Or when you looked at parts where the green, very visible, you see the stark. And that, although some of the new settlements that are developing there again have newer features, more modern, and some of the amenities that it wasn't the same across the board.
Can I ask a question about the wall? I mean, seeing the wall from this perspective is really telling. But I'm also curious. There's this building just on the other side. I don't know if folks can see it, or if I can point it out with the mouse. This thing right here, which looks like, I'm wondering if you knew what that was.
It may have been a place of crossing where there was official crossing and they had the military. That's what I think, yes. The Church of the Nativity, again, where Christ was born, they have a spot that they allow you to touch and feel. And to think about, if certainly individuals, if you're Christian, it's so fascinating that certainly when you think about at least 3 of the world religions being in such proximity and closeness physically, and yet again, all of us believe or like to think that our individual religions talk about humanity and peace and things, and yet being in a place where so much tension, and that. Although I felt secure, I always was reminded that there was turmoil.
Did you feel holiness when you stopped at this?
When I felt when I put my hand at the spot where they have a star, and that, it's, whether it's my own internal energy, I felt something. I felt something, and you goosebumps or the hair standing up. It was very meaningful, very special. Again, I'm not. I won't say I've always been very religious or very good at practicing. My mother has always been, and she continues to be. I say, I wish my mother could have been there. Sometimes my mom, but this was a time where I think my mother, it would have resonated so well for her. So when I showed her the pictures, you get a tear, and that's a special feeling, and so many. And I think my mother shares her stories coming here, and then how she always prayed, and what it meant to her, and then that her children have done okay. And it's because of her spiritual beliefs and religious beliefs. It's such a core of who she is. And so while it was special for me, it made me feel special for her and what she tried to pass on in terms of values. We had the opportunity to go to the government, and we went to the Knesset, and we sat through part of the Knesset. And it's so interesting to think of a democracy. I think about here where we supposedly have a separation of church and state, but church is such an important, critical part of their state in that way. And we've met three members of the parliament of the Knesset. It's 120 individuals, and all of them were very different. I'll have a picture of one who was the only Ethiopian Jew. Tremendous story. We met another one who was a Christian Arab woman. And then we met an American-born woman who went to Harvard. And so you saw three very different people who, again, shared their experiences, talked about their government, how they got to be into their positions, and what they were trying to do for their country, and the voices that they represent. Fascinating, and each one very intriguing, but again, open, candid. The first one on the left is we had the opportunity to go to, I guess, their Supreme Court, and while we couldn't take pictures in the hall, and that we were able to at least the sense of and everything, all the structure is symbolic. The stairs going down there, and again, if you see there, on the second picture on the right, on top, yeah, right, about evenness, balance. It was interesting to learn again. They were very careful in the design to tell something. They wanted to share something with what that meant, and this was in terms of the Supreme Court. In the picture in the lower left-hand corner, we went to the ministry, the foreign ministry, and we had the foreign minister come and speak with us. Again, I guess they were very pleased because they were the overall sponsor of the group, going through them, and two of our guides were members. They worked for them there, but again, trying to share and help us understand what this means, why the situation is what it is. How we can help, and again, trying to help people keep a balanced position, not to be leaned one way or the other. It's interesting that as we're going through our political campaigns, people are trying to influence us in so many ways with the media and the kinds of things that are told or not told. The gentleman in the center, again, eating and sharing meals, he was one of the former vice ambassadors or something to the United States at the United Nations, I should say, at the United States. And again, what this means, how we need to understand, and to help them, Youth Futures. This is one of the schools. It's a middle school. Well, it's I guess it's elementary and middle school. It was interesting because you see the bus there. They had the buses symbolized something with Rosa Parks and what they were studying and the kinds of projects that the kids. But there are teachers, and the young man on the right, who is an Arab young man, who is getting ready to go into the Israeli military, but is volunteering at the school and working with the children. And felt so powerful. You know, that made me think of our students, the community college students, in terms of how their lives are complicated, but yet they want to be involved in what they want to do. So, and then one of the visitors asked him, well, you know, what's his greatest wish? And certainly peace and a solution. And it's again looking through the eyes of youth who have so much to offer us. It was just wonderful going to the school, and then to talk to the teachers about how the experiences, what goes on in the United States, still being a model, and seeing the Rosa Parks, using that in terms of constructing what people do and how they get to be. And that's the member of parliament who from Ethiopia. When he was 15, he walked from Ethiopia through Darfur. Thought he was going to die. Made it. He was in one of those encampments that they have for refugees in Darfur. They came and got him. He thought he was going to die there. Went to Israel, went to law school, college. Interestingly enough, in Israel, the private colleges provide more access than the public university, and so he went to. I met the president of the private college where he went to for law school, and we talked about some possible partnerships in the future and kinds of things and visits. But again, someone who spiritually, his beliefs kept him going to be there. And then in Israel, they talk about. They don't say integration. They say absorption, and absorbing. It's interesting that word. I guess the connotation what does absorb mean versus integrating, and that. But some of the programming with the children, they talked about absorbing them into Israeli life. Very special. Hopefully now, my understanding, he actually comes to Connecticut on occasion to the Jewish, and hopefully if he does come, we'd like to have him schedule a visit. I'll keep that in mind. My best place, the kindergarten. I felt right at home, SpongeBob on the wall, all the kids playing. Again, one of the nice things that they did, you know, they have a special program for the Ethiopian children and the other Israeli children, where they teach them dancing, they teach each other's music. They were dancing Ethiopian music. They had to dress, they put the colors, the scarves, again, so that they were embraced and seen. Some things we need to do more of. We certainly do champion those kinds of things and advocate them here at Capitol. But again, seeing it with the children, it's just so delightful, because again, it really, we need to learn from our children. Yalim Student Village. They have a student project. These are college students who move and live in the community. This was a town outside of Jerusalem, not as on the fringe margin, a little bit more in terms of what I would call back here public housing. The youth move into public housing. They live with the people. They try to work on different kinds of things in the community. The empty lot there, they had planned to do, interesting enough, while we were there, they shared with us that they wanted to do a miniature golf course there for the kids to play in and everything. And it's right next to a store. While we were there, the store owner came and started yelling and chasing them away. Just again, not being supportive of a project that would bring the community together in some ways and that. But these young people, they want to give and they want to do and learn, like ours. should be, you can, this is the last slide. Oh, not quite, then I must have did too many, that'll come back on the last slide. Tel Aviv, looks like any big city on the Mediterranean, on the beach, beautiful. If you go down about 3 miles from that spot, though, where they had the last terrorist bombing, it was a discotheque, and it's still there as a reminder. But Tel Aviv, fabulous city. Again, we went out all kinds of hours, had a great time. I didn't go swimming. A couple of our colleagues went swimming in that, but that part of the city. We did go to we went to Jaffa, and we went to the Perez Peace House, which was quite interesting, and I'll circulate their brochure about what they're trying to do there. Previous Prime Minister Perez envisions peace and the kinds of things that they have to try and get people together. A really fabulous program and stuff that they try and do. The city of Jaffa, which is it's adjacent to Tel Aviv, had more of the Arabic influence, and Tel Aviv more European in essence. And that. But Jaffa, in terms of the kinds of things that we experienced, you had a sense more of the Arabic influence. And Perez Peace Center is in Jaffa. Another wonderful visit, the Rogerson School visit. This school went from kindergarten through high school. It's a multiculturally enriched school. It's amazing how many people who go to Israel either as workers, temporary workers, or trying to come in as refugees from the other countries. And this school had an unbelievable diversity in the ethnicity, the nationalities. The principal was unbelievable. Again, someone who had the energy to continue to want to do these kinds of things. So in the school, again, immigrants, workers, refugees, and seeing the people and the kids, the teachers committed, but certainly the kids having a place where they feel that they're embraced, and whoever they are. Wonderful. Walking around with the little kids, are dancing on that. Going to the cafeteria, and they were so cute because they would offer us their food, the kids. And that, trying to get people to see their flags, and just very, very powerful. Last slide, and that's Shalom is a Hebrew word that means peace, and the dove and the olive branch are symbols of peace. For me, these images also represent hope for peace, or a peace offering from one individual to another, or for sheer commitment work for the good of all. And this, one of the diversity calendars, is just a quote from that. I thought very appropriate to end with that. Did I go again? Yes.
Well, when you start your partnerships, you could do something in nursing. I
Okay.
Take my little munchkin and my dog. I can go.
Yes.
Working here, I see the diversity in our student body and the countries that they come from. I can't wait to get here every day to see what I can do to help each student. It's just a wonderful place to be. And so this is an inspiration.
Thank you. Yesterday I made a presentation. I get my days confused now, but it was yesterday. Tuesday, yesterday. Once a month I have what I'm calling these community conversations. I invite people from the community, and I just updated my slides. But we have 40 countries represented in our student body, 40. And so you think about that, and then sharing this with people in the community, they're just in awe of what goes on. And when I use some of Ginny's information in terms of the diversity of our students, whether it's age, gender, ethnic and race background, people don't understand that, or the diversity in terms of our student levels. When I tell them that we have, that 70-some% of our students are in college level classes exclusively, because people think it's the other way around in terms of developmental education, and just getting that message out to our community who think well of us, but they don't understand what goes on here. And so the more, that certainly is one of my goals is to continue to bring people from the community onto campus every chance I get, to help them see who we are, what's going on, and it's very gratifying to see people not wanting to leave at the time that I want them to leave so I can go to work, but staying and talking and wanting to know more. It's a great appreciation for what goes on in this building and outside of the building by our students. Thank you.
Good enough questions quickly?
Optimism or pessimism about a solution?
I'm optimistic. The glass is always half full for me. As long as people are willing, as long as there's numbers of people, I really, going there, didn't realize that how much people really wanted a two-state solution, the people there. One of the speakers really talked about it's not going to be a two-state solution. It's going to have to be a three-state solution, because certainly in the northern, where you have the one of the extreme groups, that's going to be, so it's not a unfortunately, it's not going to be that. But I think that there'll be some solution in different parts, different points. Not what I would like to see happen completely, but I do see that I'm optimistic for some progress. Too long, much too long.
Did your trip inspire you in any way to have our college connect more with the Jewish community?
Yes and no. I want to connect with all the communities. I mean, when coming here and seeing some of the things, I was very pleased about the Caribbean Festival that's being housed here, the humanities, and those are the things I want to happen at our college, because I think, and certainly one of the reasons I wanted to share this is to help people see that I also embrace the Jewish community and what they're doing, and seeing this as an important part of this. I've gone, and I will be going out to some Jewish communities to speak to them and share my experience as well. So hopefully in that, it demonstrates the college's commitment and interest in reaching out and making this work in some way.
Yeah, maybe one last question, anybody? We want to take advantage of him while he's here, but I think that's plenty of information for us to digest. So thanks again to Dr. Nieves for doing this for us.